Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we are diving deep into a topic that is always evolving and generates a lot of discussion: Canadian gun laws. Specifically, what the landscape looks like heading into 2025. This can be a complex subject, so my goal today is to break it down into clear, understandable pieces. We'll cover the basics of licensing, the different classifications of firearms, rules for storage and transportation, and some of the recent changes that have come into effect. It's a lot to unpack, so let's get started. First things first, let's talk about the foundation of gun ownership in Canada, the Possession and Acquisition License, or PAL. You can't just walk into a store and buy a firearm in Canada. You need to have this license, which is issued by the RCMP. And shotguns, and another for restricted firearms, which includes most handguns and certain rifles and shotguns. The process involves classroom learning, a written test, and a practical handling test. You'll learn everything from safe handling practices to the specific laws surrounding firearms. This application involves a detailed background check that looks at your criminal record, mental health history, and personal references. The government wants to be sure that firearms are only in the hands of responsible, law-abiding citizens. It's a thorough process that can take several months, and your license needs to be renewed every 5 years. So, the first key takeaway is that getting licensed is a mandatory and comprehensive first step. Now, let's talk about the different classifications of firearms in Canada, because this is where a lot of the rules and confusion can come from. There are 3 main categories: non-restricted, restricted, and prohibited. Non-restricted firearms are typically your long guns. Think of the shotgun your grandpa might have used for duck hunting or the rifle for deer season. These are generally permitted for hunting and sport shooting. Next, we have restricted firearms. This category mainly includes handguns, but also certain semi-automatic rifles and shotguns that are not prohibited. Owning a restricted firearm comes with much stricter rules. You can generally only use them at an approved shooting range. You can't carry them for self-defense against people. And you need a special authorization to transport, or a TT, just to take them from your home to the range. These firearms must also be registered with the Canadian Firearms Program. Finally, there's the prohibited class. This is the most restrictive category. It includes a wide range of firearms, like fully automatic weapons, sawed-off rifles, and shotguns, and many firearms that were once non-restricted or restricted but have been reclassified by the government. For most people, it's virtually impossible to acquire new firearms from this category. Generally, only individuals who are grandfathered in before the laws changed can continue to own them, and the rules are extremely stringent. One of the biggest recent developments has been the May 2020 order in Council, which reclassified over 1,500 models and variants of what the government terms assault-style firearms as prohibited. This was a major shift. If you owned one of these firearms before this date, you were generally allowed to keep it under a period of amnesty. The government has also been developing a mandatory buyback program for these prohibited firearms. The details and timeline for this program have been a moving target, but it's a key piece of the legal puzzle for 2025. It is meant to remove these specific firearms from public circulation. There has also been a national handgun freeze implemented. This means you can no longer buy, sell, or transfer handguns within Canada, with very limited exceptions for elite sport shooters and security professionals. So, if you didn't own a handgun before this freeze, you generally can't acquire one now. These two measures, the assault-style firearm ban and the handgun freeze, represent the most significant changes to Canadian gun laws in a generation. The law is very clear and very strict on this. The goal is to prevent theft and unauthorized access, especially by children. For non-restricted firearms, they must be stored, unloaded, and either made inoperable with a trigger lock or bolt removal, or locked in a secure, hard-to-break-in cabinet or room. Ammunition must be stored separately, unless it's locked in the secure cabinet with the firearm. For restricted and prohibited firearms, the rules are even tighter. The firearm must be unloaded, have a trigger lock, and be locked inside a secure container. The ammunition must be stored separately. When you're transporting a restricted firearm, say to the range, it has to be unloaded, trigger locked, and in a locked, opaque case inside your vehicle. Police can and do check for compliance. And the penalties for improper storage or transport are severe, potentially leading to criminal charges and the loss of your license. Safe storage is not a suggestion. It's the law, and it's taken very seriously. For most semi-automatic centerfire rifles, the maximum capacity is 5 rounds. For handguns, it's 10 rounds. Doesn't matter what the magazine was originally designed for. If it can fit in a semi-automatic rifle, it's capped at 5. And if it fits in a handgun, it's capped at 10. Let's also touch on some common questions. What about buying guns online or from another person? For any transfer of a firearm, both the buyer and seller must have valid PALs. If it's a restricted firearm, the transfer must be officially approved and registered by the government. Canadian law is very different from U.S. law in this regard. The law states that the force you use must be reasonable in the circumstances. So, what does all of this mean for 2025? The trend is clear. Regulations are getting tighter. The list of prohibited firearms has expanded significantly. Acquiring handguns is now nearly impossible for new owners. And the government is signaling a continued focus on controlling the types of firearms available to the public. It's the responsibility of every gun owner to know and follow the current laws to the letter. You can still get your PAL, buy a hunting rifle or shotgun, and enjoy target shooting or hunting. But the landscape has definitely narrowed, especially if you are interested in handguns or certain types of semi-automatic rifles. This was a lot of information, I know. Canadian gun law is a massive topic with many layers. My goal today wasn't to tell you whether these laws are good or bad, but to give you a clear, Actual overview of what the rules are as we head into 2025. The key takeaways are: licensing is mandatory and thorough. Firearms are strictly categorized. Storage and transport rules are non-negotiable. And recent legislative changes have significantly restricted the types of firearms available. It's crucial to do your own research, especially if you're a firearm owner. The RCMP's Canadian Firearms Program website is the definitive source for the most up-to-date information. Don't rely on hearsay or what you read on a forum. Go directly to the source. Being a responsible gun owner in Canada means being an informed one. Thanks for sticking with me through this detailed breakdown. I hope you found it helpful and informative. If you have questions, drop them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to point you in the right direction. If you found this video valuable, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more content. Stay safe, stay informed, and we'll see you in the next one.